Okay guys, now in today's video we're going to be taking a step back in time and not just around the hardware that we're going to be looking at. We're actually going to go back to the roots of our channel by taking some jank and seeing if we can actually game on it. This is the system that we're going to be looking at today. I recently purchased this for just £30, but unfortunately it doesn't work. So let's see if we can try and fix it. For £30, you're not going to get a lot for your money nowadays. In actual fact, you'll barely pick up a system that is running, which is exactly what I got here. This system was actually advertised as an FX-powered gaming PC, or at least it was once in its lifetime at some point. And it was working, but then suddenly it wasn't. Moving the system from one location to another, suddenly it just wouldn't have any power anymore. So we're going to try and fix that today. I don't exactly know what other specifications are inside of here. I'm not expecting much, but if I just remove the side from the system, we'll be able to take a look at what's in there. I do know that it's got a graphics card because I can see one sticking out the back on the port. But what graphics card that is, I mean, it could be pretty much anything. If it is from the FX period of when this graphic or the CPU was actually created, it's probably not much cop nowadays, but it's going to be super interesting to see anyway. Now, the system itself is relatively clean. We've got front I/O on here with a DVD drive. That's pretty cool. We don't have floppy drives and things like that. It's not that old, but overall, I think the system is actually looking pretty cool. We've got a lot of dust inside of here and very minimal components overall. It does appear that it's got a Corsair VS450 power supply. I've used them in the past. They're okay. They're not the best power supplies in the world, but I'm hoping that this thing isn't the thing that's broken today because power supplies can be a little bit expensive nowadays. On the motherboard itself looks very nice. It is a micro ATX board and it is the Gigabyte GA-78LMT-USB3. So again, a relatively old board, and that means it is an AM3 Plus board. So that's actually looking pretty correct so far. Underneath this cooler here, which is very dusty and it's got lots of fluff in it, there should be the FX 4300. For RAM, we do have a single stick, which is allocated in the wrong slot as well. It does appear that the RAM is installed into slot 4. I don't know why somebody would have done that, but it is an 8 gigabytes of DDR3, so that's relatively reasonable for its age. And then for the graphics card here, we've got this nice little, I'm going to say it's a Radeon card because it's in red, which it is. It is the Radeon R7 250 1GB. So that's actually pretty period appropriate for the system, although it's probably not much cop when it comes to modern games. We also don't seem to have any type of SSD in here. It is just using a mechanical drive. I'm not exactly sure what size that drive is. I'm sure we'll check it out if we can get the system running, but it is a SATA drive, and cable management wise, everything actually seems to be quite nice. I can't actually see any type of issue so far. Visually, everything seems to be connected in, but I'm sure the best thing to do before we actually start tearing things in and out is actually put it on the desk, see what really happens when we hit that switch. So with any PC that you buy, whether it's working or not working, it's always worth plugging it in first and seeing what's happening. That's before you start tearing things out, because you might actually break something and then you're pretty much not going to be able to figure out what it is. But I've got the system hooked up, we've got everything plugged in, and the power supply is turned on at the back, so that's not going to be our issue. So all we need to do now is just hit the button and see exactly what happens. So pushing the button in at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any life at all inside the system. None of the fans are running, the power supply is not coming on. Having a system that is completely dead like this could be a number of things. We could have a dead motherboard here. If it is the motherboard that's dead, then we're pretty much out of luck. You might as well just throw the system out because there's nothing really worth saving in here, not unless you can get a replacement AM3 Plus board. It could be the power supply. If the power supply is completely dead, that's an easier change, but they are quite expensive now unless you can get a second-hand one, or it could be a loose connection. I can't actually see that there are any loose connections in here. I don't think the RAM would be causing any issue, particularly not like this, or the graphics card itself, although I suppose sometimes you could have a component that is shorting out the system so it won't boot because it's protecting itself, but generally in my experience it's one of those other three components. I suppose the other thing it could be is the switch itself, so there could be an issue here. Maybe the switch isn't working, but I'm clicking it in. It's those old types of clicky ones, you can feel it on the spring, and everything seems to be working well. So I suppose the only thing that we can do is start tearing things apart, see if we can, maybe it's a loose connection somewhere, unplug all the connections, replug them back in again, reseat all of that, try it without the graphics card, because I do believe this motherboard has a built-in graphics, which is a bit unusual for AM3 Plus, but if it does, because it's got a HDMI connection on the back, then we should be good to go. But apart from that, let's try and reseat things and see if we can get it working. Now the first thing we're going to remove is the graphics card. I don't think the graphics card is going to be causing an issue. The most likely cause of our failure is going to be the power supply itself. Power supplies do tend to just go, but it's a bit weird that it was working at one stage, then the PC was moved because they replaced it with something else, stored away, and then suddenly when they got it back out again, it doesn't work. That is a little bit strange, particularly for a power supply to go or a motherboard to go. They usually have to be touched or at least on and being used for that kind of stuff, but maybe there is a short on the system or something like that. But we'll remove the graphics card first, which feels extremely tight in the system, but there we go, we've got it. Hopefully this graphics card still does work, because that means we can play with it at some point. It's very, very dusty. The rest of the system is really dusty. There's dust everywhere. I'm trying to not get it all over my hands, but this little R7 250 looks pretty cool. I suppose if you had one of these all the way back in, I think these were released at 2012 or 2013, something like that, you probably had a pretty decent system on your hands. You could probably play most games with it. It also has HDMI as well as the old little VGA port here, missing a little peg, and a DVI connection. God, I mean, this stuff is quite old now. You don't really see it anymore, so trying to remember the names of everything is a little bit difficult, but yeah. That's a little cool little graphics card. Hopefully that still works. Looking at the rest of the system, and we'll flip it onto its back. I don't think the RAM is going to be causing any issues. We'll just leave it in that slot. It's probably where it has been for all of its life. I don't know why anybody would install it there, but it was working at some point. We'll just make sure and push it down to make sure that it is inside. Usually if it is a RAM issue, the system would still boot. You just get RAM kind of errors and things like that on the motherboard, so I don't think it's that. The power connection for the EPS does seem to be located in very well. We've got the 24 pin, which that seems to be located in as well. Everything else does seem to be connected correctly. The hard drive doesn't seem like it's been moved in decades, but apart from that, I suppose we've got the HD audio, we've got the USB 2 for the front, and then we've got the connections here for the power. If it is the switch, it could be broken inside the actual switch port, but it feels correct. I suppose we could test that with a tester. I suppose that's the thing we should do, really. We can't really test the power supply without changing it. We can't test the motherboard without changing it. So the quickest and easiest thing to do is test this power switch. If that's working, then it's got to be one of those other two components. I suppose it could be a dead CPU, but again, you'd think you'd get some kind of life out of this motherboard, and why would a CPU just randomly die with the system being stored? I don't know, but let's disconnect the connection from the inside and get a tester and just test those two wires. It should be very simple to pull out, and you can just pull it out just like that. And actually, I think we've probably found our issue. If we take a look at this connector here, and hopefully you guys can see it, one of the cables has actually come out. I don't know why that has. Oh, there we go. So the plastic piece on the connector itself, I don't know what these connectors are called, but the plastic piece on this connector here is actually bent backwards, and this cable came out as I pulled it. So maybe that going inside there, when you push it in, is supposed to stay inside, but you can actually pull it in and out. So maybe something has dislodged this. I suppose the only way to test that really now is we'll take this connector off, and then we will replace it with another one. I'm sure I can find an old one of an old case out of the scrap pile. So let me go grab one, see if I can find one on an old system, and then we'll replace this first, put it back in, and then see if the system boots. Maybe this is the issue. It seems very straightforward if it is, but sometimes that is how you fix a PC, to be honest. So let's go and do that. So then I've actually pulled one off of an old PC from our scrap pile. This is just the Power SW. I thought it was best to just take that one because then it at least lines up to the labeling. The old one here has the bent little connection off of it, or it's the retention bracket. It's a little plastic retention thing. It's going to snap off if I keep playing with it, but we'll drop that down there and we'll just install these again. Hopefully I get them in the right place, although I don't think it matters. It's just an on-off switch. We'll push this connection in. There doesn't seem to be any damage to the wiring or anything like that. It's just the little connector itself. So we'll push them in. We'll plug it back into the system. It's always the biggest pain, these little connections. And then what we'll do is we'll reinstall the graphics card and we'll just see if the system works. This is probably the quickest thing that we can try. I've got my fingers crossed that it will, because if that does, then this is actually a great fix. And hopefully the system will boot. There's always the potential of other issues, of course, but let's get this graphics card reinstalled into the system and then test it again. Right, so I've got the system completely hooked up again. Everything is turned on, especially the power supply. It's really annoying sometimes when you're diagnosing a PC with no power and then it turns out that the power supply switch is actually turned off. Lots of people try to start their PCs that way, but it's definitely turned on this one. If this button does work now, this is going to be one of the easiest fixes I've ever had, because usually it is something that's dead. But like I say before, it was just moved. It shouldn't have caused any kind of issue like that. So let's press the button and fingers crossed, everybody. Hopefully this works. And there we go. The system is actually booting. That is absolutely amazing. I can't believe that that fix is the thing that was breaking this entire system. Kind of feels like I got a bit of a bargain now, even though £30 for this kind of specification system is a little bit poor, but I paid it anyway just to see if I could, and it was such an easy fix. It was actually this little clasp here. So this clasp or connection for the power switch was actually broken. There was a little peg going off that. You probably can't see that from there, but I'll get a close-up shot so you can. And it was really easy to fix. It's absolutely amazing. The system is booting. I was told there was Windows 10 on it at some point, and they've given me the access to be able to get into it if I need to. The problem is it's going to take a while to boot this system up because, of course, we are on a rust spinning hard drive. I can't believe that systems out there still have these rust spinning hard drives nowadays, and people haven't actually upgraded them with an SSD, but it's still pretty cool. The system's not too loud. You can just basically hear the whizzing of fans and a little bit of grind from this hard drive, but apart from that, it's not too bad. I thought it was going to be much worse if we could get it running, but so far everything does seem to be working. The fan and the power supply is working, which actually makes a great little spare power supply now that I know it works. Graphics card seems to be working. We've got a picture, so let's log into it. Now that we're in Windows, we can see that things are almighty slow. Most of this is going to be coming down to that hard drive, but again, the combination or the rest of the combination of the system isn't really helping. There is a big delay on the mouse. Sometimes it stutters around while it's trying to load things. We've got the spinning thing again. The hard drive did spin up a little bit then, but not too much. We'll go over to... Actually, if we just keep clicking the Windows button, you can see that it takes a while to come up. That's a little bit annoying. It's clearing up a little bit as we go, but we'll go to, I think what we'll do is we'll right click on the desktop, wait a few seconds, get to the task manager. Let's go have a look at the specifications on the system. Should be able to get a brief overview here. If we go to the performance tab, have a look here. It's quite a fresh copy of Windows by the look of it. It's very cleared down and clean. It's reasonably up to date. I don't know when this system actually was used last, but it doesn't seem too bad so far. But if we have a look at the CPU, so yes, we do. We have the AMD FX 4300, which is a quad-core processor, I believe, although you do only get 2 cores and 4 logical processors. This was at a time when AMD were doing some really weird things with CPUs. I do believe that they actually got in trouble at some point because of the higher end ones not being true. It's not going to be much cop today. Even in Windows alone, we're using a lot, but it's going to be fun to see if it can actually game or if we can actually get anything off of it. For RAM, we do have that one stick of 8 gigabytes of DDR3 currently running at, well, it says 1600 megahertz, but that's just the speed of the RAM. It's clearly not going to be running in that because you need dual channel to do it. So probably around 800 megahertz that it's running at, really. Again, really low of somebody to do. And if this was a gaming system at some time, that could have made a big difference if they'd have just had 2 RAM sticks or doubled up the RAM. For the hard drive, which is currently running at 100% utilization, which is absolutely crazy because the system's not doing anything, just navigating around this task manager window. That'll probably be the biggest pitfall in the entire system when it comes to anything. So installing games, moving files, even browsing the internet will be a bit of a pain. You'll notice that drive will try to spin up, or at least crunchy spin up in its current state. And like I say, we're already at 100% and we're not even doing anything. And for the graphics card, it has found it. So we've got AMD Radeon R7 200 series. That's actually pretty cool. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with this system, I think. That is a very easy fix of a system. I can't believe it fixed it that quick. I suppose one thing that we could do is probably run a quick Heaven benchmark. Just kind of see if the system will even start it. We're not going to test any games today. This was just about getting it up and running, which it does. But what I'll do is I'll quickly download a Heaven benchmark. We'll just have it running, or try to run it and make sure it will, and see what happens. Now, just clicking on Microsoft Edge just to get to the Heaven benchmark website shows you how slow the system's going to be. It's still loading. It's been doing it for about 30 seconds now, and it's finally just come into it, and we just need to search for Heaven Benchmark. Looks like it was actually reinstalled or cleared down before storage, because there's barely anything on it. There's no kind of histories or anything like that. They did give me the access to get into the operating system, so I suspect what they've done is clean the system down or reset it, stored it away for the future, and then just decided to use it maybe, and it doesn't work, and sold it on. And I kind of scored there because I knew how to fix it, or at least I figured out how to fix it anyway. Some people don't have that kind of knowledge in checking those kind of things, and it's very basic stuff that can cause a real issue. I don't even know where we're going now on this website. So we've got to a dodgy website. So we've gone to a dodgy website for Heaven Benchmark. Always double check your URLs before you get there. Now we've got to the actual Unigen Heaven page. Everything's taken a while to get on. We'll just hit the free download button. It's still waiting. It's still waiting. I don't even know if that did anything. It's just sitting here thinking. Let's have a look at the task manager again, see what happened. In our performance, hard drive is still at 100%. Our CPU is only running at around 20 to 30% utilization. Graphics card seems nice and cool at 23 degrees. I suppose there's not really a lot to it, so it's not really going to get that hot, especially when it's not doing anything. This still hasn't actually downloaded anything, so we'll click the button again. This is going to be one of the things that you will wait for on a system like this. Everything's going to be really slow, but now it's downloading now. The internet seems faster than the system itself, which is pretty crazy. It's been a while since I've used a system just like this. Now I've finally got Heaven Benchmark installed. It took an absolute age to be able to get this installed. It took longer to install and start Heaven Benchmark than it did to download it, so that's how slow this system is. We'll just agree to those settings there. We're not going to run anything too crazy. I have absolutely no idea what the performance of the R7 250 is. I never had one. I've never really seen them before, so it's going to be fun for me, but hopefully it will load. We'll keep it at the system resolution, which will currently be 1080p. We're going to leave anti-aliasing off. Tessellation we're going to disable and just leave it at a quality setting using the DirectX 11 API. I don't know at all what graphics drivers there are on this system. There is a little Radeon icon in the corner, so it's got something in here, but we'll just click run and we'll wait a while for it to start.
One eternity later.
Now the benchmark is finally running and it's not looking too good so far. We're currently getting around 15 frames per second, which is a little bit low in my opinion. I expected this system to at least get 30, particularly with this benchmark, because it is quite old. It's from 2009, I think, but I might be getting that wrong. And if the system was built in 2012 with what would have been, okay, I suppose entry-level stuff, but maybe the system was just designed for something like 720p, and even a benchmark like this can push it to its limits. I don't think there is anything really wrong with it, apart from its configuration. We've only got one stick of RAM, that's not great. We've got a spinning rust hard drive, that's not great, but again, inside games should be okay. We've got an old CPU that's a quad core, but maybe not such a quad core, and of course the graphics card's quite old. I think this just goes to show you that you can at least fix things. You don't have to just throw them away. Just a simple fix on a little connector just like this, where the retention's gone wrong and it fixed for absolutely nothing because I just pulled another one off of a different system. You could just push those little metal things onto the connectors themselves if you want, but it does leave them exposed. But I managed to fix it. I think I've got an absolute bargain now for £30. It's going to be a lot of fun to play with, although it's probably going to be infuriating as well because it's going to take so long to get things installed, get them running and stuff like that. We're not going to be doing that in today's video. We're going to be testing games in the next one, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to catch that. We're going to have a lot of fun with this system. And also, let me know in the comments below what you think. Did you have a system like this back in 2012? I know some of you out there still have systems like this, but hopefully you are using at least a SATA SSD and 2 sticks of RAM. And apart from that, I suppose I will catch you guys in the next one.